Welcome to Fun to Be Fit Over 50, real health and wellness that fits your real life. My name is Carol Denman, and this is where knowledge meets action. You already know what to do. Now let's talk about actually doing it. You're about to hear a conversation that still gives me chills. I just met Roy through a mutual friend, and we live in the same community. He spent decades as a fitness trainer in San Diego, specializing working with people over the age of 50. He's retired now, recovering and finally getting to focus on his Substack writing. But nearly 5 months ago, Roy was hit by a car while riding his bicycle. He was thrown 80 feet, life-flighted to a trauma hospital, and unconscious for 4 days. 2 broken legs, broken pelvis, broken ribs, damaged vertebrae. The doctors told his wife, Trudy, that it was bad, really bad. But here's what Roy had that most people don't. 52 years of consistent strength training, strong bones, dense bones, memory muscle built over a lifetime. His left fibula broke and was reattached to his ankle. Normally, recovery is 6 weeks. Roy was cleared to put weight on it in 3. He has lost 0% bone density since his 50th birthday, 0, and he's 64. Roy is still recovering. He walks with a limp. He may never ride a road bike again, not because his body can't, but because he refuses to put his wife through that horror a second time. But he's alive. He's walking. He's at the gym every morning at 6 a.m. on a stationary bike. This is why we strength train. Not for the mirror, not for the numbers, for the day life tries to take you out. And your body says, not today. Here's my conversation with Roy. Roy, take us back to that day nearly 5 months ago. You were hit by a car while on your bicycle and thrown 80 feet. What do you remember from that accident itself, and what was going through your mind in those first moments after?
Well, the first moments after, nothing was going through my mind. I was unconscious. I was life-flighted to Banner Hospital in downtown Phoenix. And I was unconscious for 4 days. So that happened on the Monday before Thanksgiving. I woke up at 11 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. Now, to say I was unconscious is a little bit of a stretch because I was very heavily medicated from the time I went into the hospital when I got off the helicopter, went right into scans and surgeries and so on. And I was heavily medicated to control pain for several days. And so I wasn't unconscious, but I was not awake until mid-morning on Thanksgiving morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was about 4 days.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you watching, a lot of these questions, this is gonna be the first time I truly have heard any of this. So that's unbelievable. That's wow.
So my first moments were waking up in the hospital in a great deal of pain, with a lot of broken bones, and my brother and Trudy standing over me and me saying what happened, them saying you were in an accident, you were hit by a car on your bicycle,
Mm.
and you're in Phoenix. And I said, how long ago? And they said earlier this week. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
miracle.
So my first moments were just a lot of pain, and my brother has the videos of all of this, of me screaming my right leg, and then giving me Dilaudid and calming me down. And I'm amazed in hindsight how calm I was after learning about all of this. Now, the backstory that you don't know is I have been involved in some other accidents over the last 30 years and always bounced back within a couple of weeks. So you asked me about my first thoughts. I'm sitting there at the hospital in a great deal of pain, believing I'll be back on my bike in less than 2 weeks, not knowing the extent of my injuries.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you've said that being physically fit is the big reason you've survived. When you were lying there with 2 broken legs, a broken pelvis, broken ribs, and damaged vertebrae, what did your fitness give you in that moment that someone else might not have had?
Above everything else, probably not what you're expecting, but bone density. I was very pleased with the fact, I wasn't pleased, but I knew that my breaks would heal fairly well because I've been practicing strength training for 50 plus years. I mean, I started this when I was 12 years old. So it was, 52 years of strength training consistently gave me strong bones. That's part of the reason why they didn't break and not as many broke as severely. It's part of the reason why they healed as well as they did. And I knew that from really the first moments that these broken bones are going to get better. And as an example, my left fibula broke and was inserted back into my ankle. Generally, that's about a 6-week recovery. Most broken bones are in that 6 to 8 week range.
Yeah.
I was cleared to put weight on this leg within about 3 weeks.
Wow.
And that has everything to do with bone density, which has everything to do with a lifetime of strength training, because strength training promotes bone density. Now, over the age of about 50, it doesn't build bone density, but it slows down the loss of bone density, which is expected tremendously. So I've had a 0% loss of bone density since my 50th birthday. That was 14 years ago. So I've lost no bone density in 14 years. That has everything to do with strength training.
That is a great testimonial for strength training.
Absolutely. I'm a fan.
Me too. I'm a fan.
Clearly.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. What did the doctors tell you in the hospital about your chances? Were they surprised at how your body responded given your age and fitness level?
In the beginning, they weren't really surprised at that because they weren't that concerned with it. As far as my chances go, they told me for the most part I would probably make a full recovery. But they didn't say anything as far as, you got a 90% chance that you'll walk normally or anything like that. They were confident that I would have a full recovery. They were cautious to say that it may take up to a year for that recovery. And as far as my fitness level goes, and them knowing me explaining what my background was, they were all really confident that I was going to do the work so that I could get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're probably like, yeah, we got one that's going to actually.
Yeah. And I'll say more about that as we go on.
Yeah.
But certainly when I was in Banner Hospital for a week, and then I was in a rehab facility for 2 months. And those are the people that really oversaw my recovery. And they're the ones that keyed into my background, my level of strength, my discipline to do what I needed to do, physical therapy, in order to get where we were going. And they keyed into that almost immediately. My physical therapy team at the rehab facility were just out of this world. They were fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. Now you're nearly 5 months out from the accident that could have taken your life. Where are you in your recovery right now? And what does a typical day of rehab look like for you?
I'm probably as recovered as I'm going to be. There's still some question about that. I have some nerve damage that wasn't discovered right away in the hospital. It took a while for them to learn about that. That causes a limp and a lack of stability on my right leg. But a typical day for me is not too different from what it was before my accident. Although I struggle walking a little bit because of the nerve damage in my right leg, I can still ride a stationary bike. So every morning at 6 a.m., I'm at the gym. I'm on a stationary bike for 30 minutes. No problems at all doing that because I don't have to bear my full body weight on it.
Yeah.
When I'm done with that, I do about 15 minutes of stretching. I come back, I have breakfast, I live my normal day. Mid to late afternoon, I go back to the gym for some strength training exercises. Now, I can't do a lot of the things that I formerly did because I fractured my right pelvis and it actually broke in half. So they had to put it back together with plates and the screws. So there's certain things I can't do. I can't do a lot of standing exercises, but seated machines I can do right now with the same intensity and effort that I was putting into it beforehand. So I do about a 45-minute strength session mid-afternoon, and I follow that with more physical therapy, balance work, stretching, flexibility work, just to keep everything, to get everything back where it was. And in addition to that, I go to physical therapy at Spooner Physical Therapy in Surprise once a week for them to kind of look at what I've been doing, update it, give me more things that I can do after my strength sessions or after my bicycle session.
Yeah.
So for the most part, my days are not too different than what they were before. The only difference is now I was semi-retired by the time of my accident. Now I am fully retired.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's no work involved. So I'm fortunate that I have the time available for that physical therapy, for that exercise. And again, in between all of that, just making good meals and giving my body time to rest also, which is still very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah, you're like a physical therapist doing like to actually do the work.
I would only say to that when I left after a couple of months at the rehab hospital, and surprise, all of the PTs got together. There's about a half a dozen of them,
Mhm.
and got a T-shirt for me, and they all signed it. Now I know that they didn't do that for everyone that leaves that hospital. They were blown away that I was out of there in 2 months because they thought it could go 4 or 5. My insurance company called me my first day there and said, "We've pre-approved you for 120 days at 100%." That is, they were paid 100% of that. That's how long they anticipated I would be there. I was out of there in 8 weeks. So they were, the physical therapists were pleased. A typical morning there, I would get up at, very early. Physical therapy sessions usually started. The first ones were group physical therapy that started at 8 a.m. I would be down there in my wheelchair at 5:30, or I'm sorry, at 7:30 a.m., pushing 1 pound dumbbells over my head, doing whatever I could do uh, to just fill in that time before the class had started. So I was even there already doing more than what they were asking for.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So you credit muscle memory as a huge factor in your recovery.
Correct.
For our listeners that may not know what that means, can you explain what muscle memory is and how your decades of strength training gave you a head start on healing?
Sure. The one of the terms more commonly used for that is called procedural memory. That's something you'll hear in physical therapy offices.
Okay.
There's another 13-letter word that starts with P that's also used, but I usually use procedural memory, muscle memory. And what it is that once a muscle has been taken to a new level, say, where it's gotten to a certain size beyond its original size, it's gotten to a strength beyond its original level of strength. When the muscle isn't activated, when it's not used, muscle deterioration generally takes about 2 to 3 weeks to begin. And the muscles start shrinking and they get less strong.
Mhm.
Um, they'll revert back to close to their original level of strength and size. Um, Muscle memory is that once you've been there, it comes back much easier and much quicker than when you originally get it. So I'm 16 years old and I'm trying to do bicep curls to get big arms, and it's taking forever, right? And I'm in the rehab hospital 50 years later, and I'm doing 2 pound dumbbell curls in the morning, which is nothing. And all of a sudden I see muscle tone on my arms increasing really daily, and it comes back very quickly, uh, more so than when you're trying to get it in the first place. So that really helped me recover because I started to get my strength back. Within a couple of weeks, I was literally doing dips in my wheelchair. Again, at this point, I'm not walking. I didn't walk for 2 months. So at this point, I'm doing dips in my wheelchair after 2 weeks or 2 months in the hospital. And I gained back my strength pretty quickly. Even now, going to the gym, I'm not quite where I was as far as strength goes um, before the accident with
Mhm.
some of the strength machines that I use, but I'm getting closer every day, and the muscle mass is starting to come back. Probably never going to be what it was before the accident, but I'm going to get as close as I can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. It's great. Your description of it at the muscle memory is really good too. So, what has been the hardest part of this recovery for you, physically, mentally, or emotionally? And what keeps you going on the days when it feels overwhelming?
Okay. That's a great question.
Mhm.
The hardest part actually is not being able to be there as I've been needed in the past to help with things, to weed the yard, to get boxes in and out of the car for my wife, um, for friends that need help with things. Have always been kind of a go-to guy is, hey, let's get Roy. He's strong as an ox.
Mhm.
And not being able to be there for people, especially for my family, has been really hard. things like walking slower. Again, I struggle walking these days, walking slower in the grocery store where we're in there, to get in, get out, get on with our lives. And it takes me, you know, 30 seconds to get halfway down the soup aisle because it's one slow step after one slow step.
Mhm.
That's been really difficult. But I'm getting better with it because that's improving. And as long as there's improvement, then the emotional question that you asked or the mental question, um, it's not so bad as long as I see improvement. You talk about what keeps me going. Well, I get pretty bummed, and then Trudy will say something like, "You're walking so much better than you were 4 days ago." So that really blowing a little bit of wind into my sails really helps a lot. So there's not too much. Um, I think that if there's a negative to it as far as bringing me down, it's really not being able to be there for people. I'm going to be fine. I survived. Whether I go back to work someday or not, I don't know. Uh, but if I don't, and if this is a life that I live, even with a little bit of a limp, uh, on the heels of what happened, which could have been so much worse, there's really not a lot to complain about. Now that the pain is gone also. And that's one thing that we haven't discussed is I was in a great deal of pain for really until about 3 to 4 weeks ago. And the pain was an everyday thing and it's gone. And so I'm not as fast. I can't do certain things like squatting down to the ground. I will get there someday, but I'm not there yet. But as long as there's no pain and this is the life that I have, I'm good with it. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, that's great. You've got a really level head about it all.
I've got a really good support system too.
You do, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. So before the accident, you built your career around the concept called physical autonomy. Can you explain what it means to someone who's never heard that term?
Sure. Physical autonomy is the idea of being physically independent, right? Of not needing help to do things physically. Whether it's bringing groceries in or carrying a bucket of tools across your property to repair irrigation, whatever that might be. Physical autonomy is the confidence. That's a really big word, an important word in this, that that people, I wish more people had that. When you ask me about making it a part of my business, that's my goal with my clients.
Yeah.
And has been for a long time, to ensure that they're capable to run their household without help from others unless it's really needed. Most of my clients are in their 70s and 80s. Most of them, because of where my business is in North San Diego County, these people live on large properties, very often 20, 30, 50 acres, where they're growing avocados and citrus and so on. And so there's a lot of irrigation issues. There's things that break. And a lot of these people, most of them really want to do it on their own. They may have groundsmen and helpers, but they get out there and they work alongside them. There's not people that do the work for them. My favorite example is Neil, who she's a woman that's 83, and she works with her yard maintenance group. She lives on 20 acres, and she works with them every day.
Wow.
And so she's going out trimming trees and that sort of thing. Physical autonomy is the ability to do that, about having confidence to get up on a ladder. It's not about leg pressing 1,000 pounds. It's about being able to pick up, this chainsaw and actually, hold it up high enough to get to the branch that she wants to. And so when I think of physical autonomy, that's one example. But again, things like just getting the groceries up the driveway and into the house, being able to pull the refrigerator out on your own to clean behind it, right? Being able to reach into the lettuce crisper at the bottom of the refrigerator to get the vegetables out. To me, that's physical independence. And I think that's really important because I think it puts a drain on people around those people that need help. And some people do, and that's okay. That's certainly some people are physically challenged or aged enough that they can't do all those things on their own. But if they can, it's been my job to try and help them get there so they need as little help as possible or no help at all.
Awesome. And that's what you said that you do. You told me that that's what you do with your clientele, mostly like working with people age 60 and over is mostly for physical autonomy.
Right. And that's really, it's not so much about lifting heavier, progressively heavier and heavier weights and getting stronger for the number. It's about taking the weights that you use in everyday life, like an 8-pound chainsaw or, a 50-pound bag of horse pellets. It's about taking the weights that you use in everyday life and getting better at using them.
Wonderful. So you've said that you help clients with everyday stuff, like picking up a case of water from the bottom of a cart, carrying a bag of dog food into the house. Why do you think those seemingly small movements are actually the most important things we should be training for?
Well, I'll go back to what I just said, that I believe that families work better, communities work better, businesses work better, and societies work better when people can be as independent as possible. Because every time you need to take somebody off of something else that they're doing to help you, that dilutes that. And this goes back thousands of years. And we won't go into all that, but even in ancient Asian philosophy and Greek and Roman philosophy, it's the weak link in the community that you want to make stronger. You don't get rid of the weak link because it's weak. You help build that link back up so it can take its own place. And so, I think, and it's also there's an aspect of confidence with it where people are glad. I can't tell you how many times, and I use this as an example, and you used it, but it's really true. Every time a client gets a case of water from the cart at Costco after the SUV, I hear about it. And they say, thank you. I did it. I did it again. I did it again today. And I really believe that builds better families. It builds better, like I said, communities, neighborhoods, societies, and places of employment. If I'm working somewhere and I need help doing something and I have to call another employee in to help me do it, I'm taking that employee away from something that might be more important than what I need help for.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we all have it. I don't want to say an obligation, but I think it behooves all of us to be as physically able as possible, given our limitations. And I think that's really important. Some people just, if you're predisposed to back issues or knee issues or whatever, you're never going to get there, or maybe never going to get there. And that's okay. That's understandable. But for somebody who just, is content with not exercising and binge watching Netflix while they eat Doritos and drink Dr. Pepper, I kind of struggle with that.
Yeah. So you started working with children as a strength and conditioning coach. At around the year 2000, you transitioned to working with people 50 and older. What did you realize about the over 50 population that made you focus on them?
Okay, so in the year 2000, I was getting ready to enter my 40s. And that's kind of a pivotal age for people to start thinking forward.
Yeah.
And I started to realize I was going to become one of them, right? So peripherally, I was a strength and conditioning coach for high school and junior college athletes. And a lot of their parents would come to the sessions and ask me fitness advice. And then some of them wanted to become clients. And I sort of saw the future and I saw my future. And I'll be very honest, working with teenage athletes, especially when they're good, can be challenging. And I was I'm just going to say gently burned out on that.
Yeah.
And I saw this opportunity to work with some of their parents and grandparents. And it was less hardcore, which was kind of my nature back then.
Yeah.
But more meaningful, and seeing what they were able to develop. Going back to, hey, I got the case of water up into the car today.
Yeah.
And it was probably about a 2-year bridge where I was doing fewer student athletes and more adults, and then they would tell their friends and so on. And I just came to appreciate doing that more, again, as my body was aging then, going into my 40s, and really focusing. And I mean, from day one as a kid, picking up weights for the first time. One of the things that was very appealing about strength training to me was that it was for old people. Right? It's something that old people can do. When I was a little kid, Willie Mays or, Mickey Mantle, were baseball players, and their careers were winding up in their 30s or maybe in their 40s if they were lucky. Football players, sometimes in their 20s. And I wanted to have that level of fitness until I die. And I still want that.
Right.
And so helping people get there and really focusing on myself more in that same way speaking that one language to them and speaking a different language to myself wouldn't have worked. So for me to adapt to them, I had to adapt my ways to what I was teaching them. And I never looked back from that. From 2003, 2004 on, I was working exclusively with people over 40, eventually over 50, now all 60s, 70s, 80s, and sometimes in their 90s.
Wow. It's great. This is the answer everybody needs to hear. Right. So, what's the biggest misconception people over 50 have about strength training? And what would you say to someone who's afraid to start because they think they're too old or too out of shape?
Okay, I'm going to answer those questions in reverse.
Okay.
The thing that I would tell them if they're afraid they're too old is being strong is a good problem to have.
Right.
Right. Being strong is something that you can use every day of your life that you will appreciate once you have it. The biggest misconception is people are going to get injured in strength training, right? And I'm here to tell you, if you select the proper load and do it the proper way, it is all but impossible to get injured in strength training. You have to almost try to do it. Now, if you're being sloppy, cheating in exercise, letting your ego get the better of you and selecting too much weight, going back to, we take the weights that we use in everyday life and we get better at using them. And if you select a load that's appropriate and you do it properly, you're never going to get injured. And over time, you can increase that load in very small increments over time so that when you were down here, once upon a time, lifting a certain weight, over time, you can get up here. Now, the goal isn't to get way up here. It's not to become ultimately stronger than people you see on Instagram or TV or whatever. It's to take the weights that you use in everyday life and get better at using them. And if you do it correctly, you will never get injured in strength training.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, it's true. There's really no limit on strength. Like you're never gonna go, oh, I'm too strong.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing. Again, getting people to understand that you don't have to be, you can get stronger at any age. And I mean, I've had worked with 90-year-old clients that have gotten stronger. My oldest client that I've ever worked with, his name, ironically, was Tom Denman. And at 95, he wanted to bench press 100 pounds because of a conversation he had playing golf. Think about that, playing golf at 95, right? And he had a conversation with somebody. He came to me, he said, I want to bench press 100 pounds. And I said, Tom, that's stupid. It's really dumb. I'm sorry, I don't like to use words like that, but it has no relevance for you whatsoever. You need to get your golf bag out of the Jaguar every day, okay, or 3 days a week. That's how strong you need to be. And we just put it to bed. And he was strong enough to where he worked with me until his late 90s when he finally retired in Palm Desert, passed away a couple of years later. Um, but again, I'll go back. Being strong is a good problem to have. Being infinitely strong is unnecessary.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. So you've been married to your wife, Trudy, for 40 years. How has she been your anchor through this accident and recovery? And what has this experience taught you about the people who show up for you?
I can't say enough how she has been there every step of the way in support. She was actually at the accident scene because it happened just a few miles from here. Um, she has just been everything. An example would be even now, because I'm not walking that well, she stands next to me and walks at a slower pace. She won't go ahead in the grocery store aisle to go get something and wait for me to catch up to her. She walks constantly with one hand out so that if I need it, I can grab it. Me being a man, I try not to grab that hand,
Right.
but when I need it, I know it's there.
Yeah.
When I'm tired and I say I don't want to do something, it's not even questioned. She just simply says, I understand. It's all good. And I feel bad because I'll go right now, in part because of the trauma my body went through. also in part because of medications I'm taking to control nerve pain in my right leg. I'm tired a lot. I sleep a lot. I take naps. I go to bed at 7:30 every night.
Yeah.
And I'm apologizing, saying, "Hey, I'm sorry. I I need to go to bed. Don't think twice about it." And she uh, has just been there for me when I get a little bit frustrated that I'm not walking better or that this is taking longer than I expected. She's always reminded me of where I was at every step of the way and how far I've come. And she's been gracious and met every day with a smile and with love that I can't imagine exists in this world. And I'm grateful. As far as the people who show up for me goes, um, we've lived in and out of Phoenix on and off since the 1980s. We've been back here for a couple of years, but we have tons of friends and family here. I have a lot of cousins here. When I was in the hospital, I had visitors. I mean, from day two, when I came into consciousness, when I woke up, I had visitors every single day, cousins, friends. Phoenix is a big city and, Banner Hospital is a long way from Gold Canyon, which is part of the Phoenix area. I had people driving 60 miles to come visit me every day. Um, and those people showed up and they brought me gifts. They brought me things to read. They checked in on me. They texted me. Um, and I felt so much support from those people in my recovery, in the hospital, in the rehab facility, where they continue to visit me. Neighbors here, people that live across the street, visited me, who I barely know, visited me 3 times in the hospital to play card games and bring me food and things like that. So I've learned that I need to be as good with people in my life who are in need as those people have been with me. And I have to be honest with you, that was a real revelation for me because I'm not sure I was there. I try and be there for people, um, but I can see myself putting it off. Oh, I'm not going to go visit that person in the hospital because I've got all this to do. And I'm a different person today because of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Uh, wow.
Yeah, that's true. That's really, and I've been saying from the very beginning, I'm never going to be the same person again because I received so much love and so much support from people, friends and relatives. And again, some people that I barely knew. That was just
So you have an adult daughter. How has she handled watching her dad go through something like this? And has it changed how she thinks about her own fitness?
my adult daughter is 35. Um, she doesn't think too much about her own fitness because it's already a part of her life. She's a walker. She's always lived in urban areas like Chicago. She now lives in Philadelphia. Um, again, she hasn't owned a car since she was 17 years old.
Oh,
She's
wow.
always walked. She walks, in cold weather, she might take public transit or if she's in a hurry, but she lives a couple miles away from the university where she works. And most days she walks there. She swims when she can, when she has access to a pool. Um, as far as how she has handled this, she was here maybe a week or two. I don't remember honestly.
Right.
After my accident, this was all through the holidays, so this is between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
She was out. She came out and stayed for a week, visited me in the hospital every day. Was as gracious and supportive, just like her mother. But the reality is, she had to get back to work, and so she couldn't stay for an unlimited time. But she came out here after my accident. As far as it, uh, you know, lending itself to her fitness. She's always taking care of herself. She's always been a walker, a swimmer. She strength trains when she can. So this is, again, she grew up, I could sneak into the lodge when I was, my home studio when Chelsea was, 12 years old and I would see her doing tricep push and stuff like that. So she's familiar with strength training and knows the value of it.
Yeah.
She grew up with it.
Yeah. Oh, great. Before we wrap up, can you tell our listeners where they can follow your journey?
Yes, I have a blog on Substack. You can subscribe for free. And it is an offshoot. I had a website for years called thespokenword.net.
Okay.
And it was a tie into the spoken word, but the spoke and word about it was not a blog about bicycling. It was a blog about what does a guy think about when he goes outside and rides a bike for 2 hours every day.
Yeah.
And I have a passion for smartphone photography and for writing. And so for years I had this blog. It was just, I rode my bike 10,000 miles a year, roughly about 30 miles a day, and every day, pretty much 6, 7 days a week.
Mhm.
And I would write about um, what goes on in my head when I'm riding, which has nothing to do with fitness or bicycling. It might have to do with politics or religion or being a family man or, you know, whatever.
Mhm.
And when I was in the rehab facility and it occurred to me that I might never ride again,
Mm.
I took that log down. I didn't even um, archive the contents of it. I mean, talking about years of, essays that I had written, but I felt the need to keep writing, and it was no longer relevant to cycling or what I think about when I'm on my bike. And so I started a blog on Substack. It's just under my name, Roy Cohen at Substack. And it's just usually once a week, maybe sometimes twice a week, thoughts about whatever's going on in my head, whether it relates to politics, being a family man, being a member of the community, sometimes exercise, sometimes the ironies of life. And that's what I'm doing now. And hopefully in time, like I said, you can subscribe to for free for right now. The writing career may be my next endeavor. I've done some professional writing in the past as it relates to fitness. I had a column on once upon a time, livestrong.com was Lance Armstrong's.
Oh, yeah.
We all remember the yellow wristbands.
Yeah.
We all know what happened to Lance Armstrong. But I had a column on there for a number of years called Contemplative Fitness. Again, it's all gone now because that website was brought down after Lance Armstrong was, you know, unceremoniously removed from his own organization.
Mhm.
But that need to write continued over to my bicycle log, which has now continued over to my personal log. And it's just for fun. Right
Yeah.
now it's for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I subscribe to it. It's interesting. Yeah. I love it. I love to write too. So I understand.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's my therapy.
It's very
Yeah,
therapeutic.
absolutely.
So therapeutic. Yeah.
Especially in the hospital.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've spent your career helping people over 50 stay strong and independent. My podcast is called Fun Be Fit Over 50. What does that phrase mean to you, especially now after everything you've been through?
Fun to be fit means that it shouldn't be work, right? Exercise should make your life better, not worse. I think I said that to you when we first met, and it's a phrase that I use quite a bit. If you begrudge going to the gym, if you don't look forward to working with a trainer, if you think strength training in particular, but exercise of any kind, is something that's just not for you, then you've been exposed to the wrong kinds of exercise, or you've been exposed to the right kinds of exercise, but taught to do it incorrectly.
Mhm.
And that fun, looking forward to going to the gym should be a part of that experience. It should be fun to go to the gym. It should be fun to leave the gym. And everything you do once you leave the gym should be better and more fun because of that investment that you've made in your body and in your mind, right?
Mhm.
So I can't imagine what my life would be without regular exercise in it. I don't enjoy nearly as much. I enjoy so much of my life, so much more than I would otherwise, because I've taken care of myself, because I have the cardiovascular fitness, because I have the strength, because I have the balance and the flexibility to do things. I enjoy, I don't mind going to a basketball game and walking to the top of the bleachers because I'm too cheap to buy the low seats. And I don't have a problem doing it. It's fun walking up those stairs because I can do it, right?
Yeah.
And I think when people discover that, they tend to appreciate their exercise a little bit more. So I think exercise really can almost be a midwife for more fun later in life. The better conditioned you are, the stronger that you are, the better balance that you have, the more fun everything can be. Going to a wedding that's out in the middle of the field, right, where you've got to walk on uneven ground. When you're physically confident because you've been doing balance exercises, that walk out there is fun. When you're not in that condition and you're concerned that you're going to trip and fall, you say, I don't want to go to that wedding because I don't think I can make it out there,
Yeah.
to where all the seats are. That's where fun ends, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. I mean, it's true. It is
Yeah.
more fun when you're fit.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Everything that you do, if you've got good, and I want to really draw the distinction between health and fitness, because they're not, people often use them as pseudonyms for one another,
Mhm.
and they're not always the same, but they can be.
Yeah.
Health can mean fitness, and fitness can mean health when they're both pursued in the right way and kind of intermingled together.
Mhm.
If your exercise life is just about hitting numbers and just about being more fit, that's good. But if you're not including aspects of health also, you're forgetting something. And the same thing with health. If you're eating good and you're trying to make healthy decisions and keep your blood pressure medicine to a minimum or whatever that might be, but you're not also thinking about fitness, you're only getting part of the equation. So
Yeah.
health and fitness go together, but they're not necessarily the same thing. And I think when you can merge them, life becomes more fun. To answer
Yeah.
your question.
Yeah.
So,
It's great. All right. So finally, what's one message you want to leave with our audience today? If someone takes nothing else away from this conversation, what do you hope it is?
that being strong is a good problem to have. Absolutely. It is, again, can make every aspect of your life better if you're pursuing the strength that you need for everyday life, where we make conveniences. We built our life around convenience. We built, you know, cars around convenience. We built
Yeah.
shares around
Food.
convenience. We
Everything.
built food around convenience. And when you can look less at convenience and more, what am I able to do? I'd like that, if that makes sense for
Yeah.
people to take that away. But um, exercise can be fun, absolutely, positively. And again, coming back just a little bit, life is more fun when you're better prepared and better conditioned to enjoy that life and to participate in it.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be the guy that says, I don't want to go to that wedding because I can't walk out into the field because of all the rocks or whatever. And I know people that have lived that experience when you work with people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, and you see that caution with them. And that's why they come to me. And then I say, okay, well, it doesn't have to be that way. We can get you better at that. It's going to take a while. It's going to take some consistency.
Mhm.
And maybe more than anything else, to answer your question, that exercise does not give you instant returns. It takes a while. It takes time. It takes consistency and a little bit of effort. And if you can merge those things, time, consistency, and effort, you can change your abilities at any age, even 95. Yeah.
It's great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much
Well,
for
thank you
doing
for
this.
having me.
Yeah, like some of your story I haven't heard until today. I just I remember getting the message from not your Trudy, but my
Yeah.
Trudy that that you had just been in an accident and like it just seemed surreal and the fact that you came through it because we weren't sure.
Yeah,
You
I,
know?
I wasn't sure. And the accident happened 4 miles from here. It happened at 7 o'clock in the morning for years, decades. I've kept my Trudy's phone number and name on my helmet
Mhm.
in case of an emergency.
Right.
So the guy that hit me, after he called 911, he saw that and he called Trudy,
Wow.
and she came running down. She was at the pottery studio here,
Okay.
and it was down at mile marker 218 heading towards the Buckeye Airport. And she came upon me as the paramedics were just getting there, right? So she was early to the scene. She thought I was dead.
Oh.
And she stood there in horror as the paramedics were surrounding me, getting my breathing going, which I was breathing. Um, but she stood there for a long time thinking that I was unconscious, obviously. And there's no MRI machine and there's no doctor there. So there's no way to know how severe my injuries were. And they put me into a helicopter and flew me to Banner Hospital in about 7 minutes. she had to drive an hour to get there. And she spent that hour not sure if I was still going to be alive when she got there, or if there was going to be brain damage or internal organ, or would I be paralyzed?
Yeah.
None of this was known at that point. And she was horrified until I came out of some of the surgeries. I went right into surgery after surgery to fix different broken bones and so on. Uh, I think about that every day. People ask me, if you can ride a stationary bike, will you get on a road bike again? And I've been on a bicycle every day of my life for decades. And the reality is I won't get on a road bike again, because I know that when I leave the driveway, Trudy forevermore will be horrified. She's going to have to go through that again. So I'm now committed. I'm an indoor stationary bike kind of guy, which I will be for forever.
Maybe you could start teaching our spin classes here.
You know what? I used to be a spin instructor once upon a time. I did it as a part-time thing, peripheral to my and that may happen again. It may not. Like I said, as of right now, I'm retired. Whether I go back to my gym in San Diego, I don't know. Maybe, but I want to be a little bit more recovery before I start thinking about going back to work again. Yeah. So let's see.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for it. Like I think this is going to help so many people, because even if you just are like had to have knee surgery and you're laid up on knee surgery and you're normally an active person, it's torturous.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
So to hear like what you've come through,
right,
and stuff. I mean, it's like that knee surgery, they're going to be like, oh, I got this all day long, Before we go, I want to share something important. This podcast is all about sharing real life experiences, insights, and inspiration. But it's not a substitute for professional medical advice. I'm your cheerleader and fellow traveler on this journey, not your doctor. Everyone's body is different. What works for me or my guest might not be right for you. So please always check with your healthcare provider before starting any new fitness routine, changing up your eating habits, or trying something new. You know your body best, and partnering with a good doctor is part of taking care of that beautiful body of yours. This show is for educational and informational purposes only. By listening, you agree that you're ultimately responsible for your own health decisions. Now go out there and have some fun being fit.